You spent $600 on that shiny new driver. The kid in the pro shop promised you 10 more yards. You swing about 85 miles an hour, same as most weekend golfers, and you still walk off the tee wondering where all that power went. Here is what I found after 2 years of digging. A $199 driver will keep your 85-mile-an-hour swing just as long, just as powerful for the rest of your life. Not this season. Forever. Because the raw power of every legal driver on earth was frozen by a single rule more than 20 years ago, and almost nobody tells you that. I could not let it go. I kept asking why the average amateur hits the ball no farther today than he did in 2007, even after buying 5 new drivers. By the end of this, I will show you a buried set of launch numbers from a United States Golf Association ruling that most golfers have never read. It works with the driver already sitting in your garage today. You do not need to buy a thing. Let me take you back to the moment this started. I was standing in a used club aisle, holding a driver from 2009 that cost $39, right next to a brand new one at $549. An old fitter walked past, glanced at both, and said quietly, "Same ball speed, you know." Then he walked away. That sentence stopped me cold, and I spent the next 2 years finding out if he was right. Here is the belief almost every golfer carries. Newer driver, faster ball, more distance. It feels obvious. It feels like progress. I believed it too, right up until I read the actual physics. Every driver face acts like a trampoline. When the ball hits it, the face flexes in and springs back, launching the ball faster than the club head alone would. Engineers call this the spring-like effect. The measurement for it is called the coefficient of restitution, or COR for short. A perfectly dead wall would be 0. A perfect trampoline would be 1. Now here is the part that changed everything for me. The United States Golf Association looked at this trampoline effect and got nervous. Drivers were getting so springy that the game itself was in danger of breaking. So in 1998, they issued a formal notice to manufacturers setting a hard limit. The coefficient of restitution could not go above 0.830, not 0.84, not 0.9, 830 thousandths, and no higher. That number is the ceiling. Every driver sold as legal for real play, from that day forward, had to obey it. And most drivers hit that ceiling almost immediately. By the early 2000s, the top faces were already sitting right at the legal maximum. There was nowhere left to go. The trampoline was as bouncy as the law would allow, so think about what that means. If the springiness of the face is capped, and the best drivers already reached the cap 2 decades ago, then the raw energy transfer from a new driver and an old one is, for practical purposes, identical. The old fitter was right. Same ball speed. But that only deepened the mystery for me. Because if the power was frozen in 1998, why does a new driver come out every single year, each one promising more distance than the last? Somebody was still selling me 10 more yards. Where were those yards supposed to come from if the trampoline was already maxed out? That is where the story turns, and where I started to get a little angry. Let me be careful and fair here. Nobody broke a law. But somebody figured out how to keep you paying for a number that could no longer grow. Follow the timeline with me. In 1998 came the coefficient of restitution limit. Then, in 2002, the United States Golf Association and the Royal and Ancient in Scotland, the 2 bodies that write the rules for the whole world, signed a joint statement of principles. They agreed the ball and equipment had gone far enough, and they would hold the line. Then, in 2004, they replaced the old springiness test with something called the characteristic time test, measured in microseconds. The limit they set was 239 microseconds with an 18 microsecond tolerance. It is a stricter, more precise way of measuring the exact same trampoline effect. By 2004, the ceiling was not just set. It was locked, tested, and enforced. So let me ask the question that kept me up at night. If the face cannot legally get bouncier, and the best faces have been sitting at the ceiling since before the first iPhone existed, what exactly are you paying $600 for? Here is what I found. You are paying for paint, for a new name, for a sound engineered in a lab to feel powerful, for a story about a new material that, under the rules, cannot make the ball leave the face any faster than the driver you already own. I want to give you one hard number, because I distrust vague claims as much as you do. Independent testing outfits, the kind that put dozens of drivers on the same launch monitor with the same robot swing, have found the difference in ball speed between the longest new driver and the average driver from years ago to be a fraction of a single mile per hour. In distance terms, at your swing speed, we are talking a yard or two, sometimes 0. Sometimes the older one wins. A yard for $600 once a year. And this is the machine I started to see clearly. It is not one villain in a dark room. It is a whole system built to keep the yardage promise alive after the yardage itself stopped growing. Release a new model every 12 months. Give it a bold name. Pay a touring professional who swings 120 miles an hour to say it changed his life, and let you assume that what helps him will help you. But you do not swing 120, you swing 85. And that difference is the whole secret, which is exactly where I dug next. Here is the belief that was quietly robbing you, and it robbed me for years too. You watch the professionals on television. Their drivers say 9 degrees, sometimes 8.5 on the bottom. Low loft looks strong. Low loft looks fast. So you buy 9 or 10.5 degrees because that is what the winners play, and it feels like the manly, powerful choice. That single decision is costing you more distance than any driver upgrade ever could. Let me explain what I learned, because when I first read it, I did not believe it and had to test it myself. Distance off the tee is not just ball speed. It is ball speed launched at the right angle with the right amount of spin. Think of watering a garden. Hold the hose flat and the water dies quickly on the ground. Tilt it up to the right angle and the water flies across the whole yard. The water pressure never changed. Only the angle did. A professional swinging 115 or 120 miles an hour generates so much ball speed that he needs very little loft. His speed does the lifting for him. If he used your loft, the ball would balloon into the sky and fall short. But you are not him. At 85 miles an hour, you do not have the speed to make a low-lofted ball climb and carry. Your ball comes off too flat, dives too soon, and dies on the fairway 30 yards short of what it could do. You have been copying the launch angle of a man with a completely different engine. Now here is the forgotten knowledge, and it is not new. It is old. Fitters and physicists worked this out decades ago. The slower your swing, the more loft you need, not less. More loft gets the ball airborne, keeps it in the air longer, and lets it carry farther, even though your speed never changed. The launch monitor companies have published optimizer charts on exactly this. For a swing speed around 85 miles an hour, the loft that produces the most carry distance is not 9 degrees. It is not 10.5. It sits up around 14, 15, even 16 degrees of effective launch. That is far more than almost any weekend golfer is playing right now. Let me put a number on the theft. Moving from a launch angle that is too low to one that is properly optimized for your speed can add anywhere from 10 to 25 yards of carry. No new driver. No faster swing. No lessons. Just the correct angle for the engine you already have. And here is the part that made me laugh out loud in frustration. The wrench to fix this probably came in the box with your current driver. So, let me talk directly to you, the one thinking this is too much fiddling, that this is for gearheads and young players, not for you. This next part is built specifically for you, and you can do it this week, in your own garage, tonight if you want, with what you already own. Pick up your driver and look at the head near where it joins the shaft. On almost every driver made in the last 15 years, there is a small adjustable hosel and a little torque wrench that shipped with it, probably in a drawer you forgot about. If you cannot find the wrench, one costs a few dollars, but most of you have it. That adjustment lets you add loft without buying anything. Turning the setting up toward the higher loft mark does exactly what the garden hose angle does. It tips the launch up. If your driver says 9.5 degrees, set it to its highest position, often 11 or 12. If it is a 10.5, take it as high as it goes. You will not hurt the club. This is what the feature is for. If your driver has no adjustment at all, there is still a free move. Tee the ball higher. A ball teed so that its middle sits level with the top edge of the driver face launches higher and with less spin, which for a slower swing means more carry. Cheap wooden tees, an extra half inch of height, no cost. I tested this against my old low tee and picked up real yards on a launch monitor at my local shop for the price of nothing. And that brings me to the thing I had been chasing the whole time, the piece of buried research that finally closed the case for me. If you want every layer of this investigation in one place, the rulebook timeline, the optimizer data, the exact loft and contact numbers broken down by swing speed, I put it all together in a digital book available in 3 tiers: Smart Basics, Deeper Fixes, and the full system. Each one goes further into the research than I can cover in a single video. You can find the link in the description below. Everything in it follows the same rule as this channel. If it costs you money without earning you yards, it does not belong in the book. Now, back to that buried research, because it is exactly what closes the case for good. One more free move for you this week. Move the ball forward in your stance, off the inside of your lead heel, and tilt your trailing shoulder slightly down at address. That lets you catch the ball on the way up instead of on the way down. Hitting up, even 2 or 3 degrees, launches higher and spins less. It is the swing version of tilting the hose. No purchase, no coach, just standing to the ball differently. I promised you I would not waste your time with things only other people can do. Every single move I just gave you costs $0 and works with the driver you own tonight. But loft and tee height were only part of what I uncovered, because there was still one more place the yards were hiding, and it turned out to be the biggest thief of all. Here is the next belief to break. You think you need to swing harder. Grip it and rip it, kill it. More effort, more distance. I believe that so deeply that I spent years swinging out of my shoes and wondering why the ball went sideways. The truth is the opposite, and it has a name. Fitters and engineers measure how efficiently you transfer your swing speed into ball speed with something called smash factor. It is simply ball speed divided by club head speed. And here is the wall nobody can climb past. Because of that trampoline limit we talked about, the coefficient of restitution ceiling of 0.830, the highest smash factor a driver can produce is right around 1.50. That is the law of physics meeting the law of the rule book. At 1.50, an 85-mile-an-hour swing produces a ball speed of about 127 miles an hour. That is your maximum. That is the ceiling for your engine, and it is a good ceiling. The problem is that almost nobody reaches it because they are chasing speed instead of contact. Here is what steals your smash factor: hitting the ball off the toe, off the heel, low on the face. Every miss away from the center, that sweet spot called the center of gravity, bleeds ball speed. A strike half an inch off center can cost you 5, 8, even 10 miles an hour of ball speed. That is 15 or 20 yards gone. Not because you swung slow, but because you swung hard and missed the middle. Now, this is where I have to give the modern driver its due, because I am not here to tell you all new technology is a lie. It is not. The one thing that genuinely improved since the 2000s is forgiveness. Engineers pushed the weight to the far corners of the head, raising something called the moment of inertia, which resists twisting on off-center hits. The rule makers even capped that too, at 5,900 grams per centimeter squared, because it got so good. A high forgiveness head keeps more ball speed on your bad strikes. But here is the twist that matters to your wallet. That forgiveness technology was largely maxed out over a decade ago. A forgiving driver from 2014 or 2016 already has nearly all the twist resistance the rules allow, which is exactly why a used one at $199 or less protects your ball speed on mishits just about as well as the newest release at twice the price. So the real path to your longest drive was never a faster swing or a newer head. It was 3 things the industry stopped emphasizing because they cannot be sold to you every year: correct loft for your speed, center contact, and a head forgiving enough to save the strikes you miss, which you already can buy used for a song. To hit the center more often, here is the free drill I tested and now swear by. Buy a can of the cheapest foot spray powder or use a strip of masking tape across the face. Hit 5 balls, the mark shows you exactly where you are striking. Almost everyone finds they hit it low on the face, which is the single most common power leak. Tee the ball higher, stand a touch closer, and watch the mark climb toward the center. A dollar can of powder just found you yards that no driver could sell you. I kept asking myself, if the power was capped in 1998 and the forgiveness was capped soon after, is there an actual document in plain black and white that proves an 85-mile-an-hour golfer gains nothing from raw driver upgrades and everything from launch conditions? I did not want opinion. I wanted the source. I found it in the technical world the rule makers and the launch monitor engineers live in, the optimal launch condition data that sits behind those charts I mentioned. When you strip it down to a swing speed of 85 miles an hour, the numbers are startling, and they have been sitting in the open for years while everyone stared at the shiny new driver instead. Here is what that data actually says for your swing. To maximize your carry at 85 miles an hour, you want a launch angle in the neighborhood of 15 to 17 degrees. You want a backspin rate down around 2,600 to 3,000 revolutions per minute, not the 4,000 many amateurs produce with their too low tee and downward strike. Hit those windows, and an 85-mile-an-hour swing carries the ball right around 215 to 220 yards, with roll pushing it further. Now compare that to reality. The large tracking data companies that record millions of real amateur shots find the typical golfer at your speed carrying the ball far shorter than that because his launch is too low and his spin is too high. The gap between what you do and what the optimizer says you could do is not a driver problem, it is a launch problem. And a launch problem is free to fix. That was the moment the whole case snapped shut for me. The power ceiling was set in 1998. The precision test locked it in 2004. The forgiveness ceiling followed. Every legal driver has been living against those same walls for 2 decades. The only variable left, the only real distance still available to a golfer swinging 85 miles an hour, lives in loft, launch angle, spin, and center contact, every one of which you control for $0 with the club in your bag. The knowledge existed. Engineers and old fitters knew it and wrote it down. It got pushed aside, buried under a new model every autumn, and a professional's endorsement every spring, but it was never lost. It was sitting in the rulings and the optimizer charts the whole time, waiting for somebody to read it instead of buying the story. Now you have it. So let me hand you the exact weekend plan, the one that closes this case in your own hands. Find the wrench in your drawer. Turn your driver to its highest loft setting. Tee the ball so its center sits above the top of the face. Move it forward in your stance and tilt your back shoulder down so you strike up on it. Spray a little powder on the face and hunt for center strikes until you find them. Do that, and you will outdrive the golfer who just spent $600 to keep his ball too low. I want to say one more thing about that $199 driver in the title because it is the heart of everything. You do not even need to spend that. If you already own an adjustable driver from the last 15 years, you own the whole kit. If yours is old and worn and you want a forgiving head, a used model from around 2016, sitting at the same legal ceilings as this year's release, will run you $100 or less and will keep that 85-mile-an-hour swing powerful for the rest of your golfing life. Not for a season, forever. Because the ceiling it lives against cannot legally move, and neither can the one on the newest driver in the store. Here's what I keep coming back to. Every year, the promise arrives again, 10 more yards, a revolutionary face. And every year, quietly, the rulebook says the same thing it has said since 1998. The trampoline can only bounce so much. The truth did not change, only the marketing did. What you just took back is the yardage that was always yours, hiding in an angle, a tee height, and a strike, waiting behind a wall of new paint and confident salesmen. If you are the kind of person who has always suspected that the simplest, cheapest, most reliable answer was buried on purpose, so someone could sell you the expensive one every year, then you already understand what this whole investigation was really about. It was never about golf. It was about who profits when you forget what you already own. Now I want to hear from you, and be specific, because I read these. Go find your driver right now. Look at the loft printed on the bottom of the head and tell me the number you see. 9 degrees? 10.5? Type that number in the comments and tell me whether you knew you could turn it up. I want to see how many of you were playing a professional's loft with a weekend player's swing, because I was too. And if you believe the way I do that a whole generation of practical, money-saving knowledge got quietly buried so we would keep paying, then come along with me. Subscribing is not about me. It is about joining a group of people clawing back the cheap, reliable answers that got taken from us one product launch at a time. Because the next thread I am pulling is just as buried. I found evidence that the golf ball you play, the one you are told to match to your swing, was capped by that very same 1998 to 2004 rulebook, and that a $2 ball may fly nearly as far as the premium one you keep losing in the woods. I tested it. The results surprised even me, and I cannot wait to show you. I'm still digging with you here, because there's more I couldn't fit in this video. Inside my membership, the Old Ways Circle, I pick up right where I just stopped. You can ask me your own question, and I answer you myself. Huh. Folks like you are already in there with me. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel any time with one click.